The More Movement Crew.
So welcome to the More Movement Crew podcast. I'm your host, Kenina Porter, and this is episode 13. And I'm so excited today because I love when people come on the show and tell stories. So I get so excited when someone shares a story. And this particular story is really a close to my heart topic. But before we get into all of that, if you're watching, I want to remind you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share. We are on Facebook, The More Movement Crew, and we are on Instagram, The More Movement Crew. So, and also IGTV. So check out our videos. But thank you for tuning in. I'm so excited that you decided to tune in, and you're definitely not going to be disappointed. I tell you for sure, you're not going to be disappointed at the story that we hear today. So before we get started and we officially introduce the guest, I always want to play a game because, for one, it's fun and it helps for the audience to get to know the guest. So we're going to play a game called 5 Questions. You ready for this game?
Yes.
All right. So the first question is, name 3 words that describe you.
I would say creative because that's where my passion lies. Funny because I absolutely love bringing a smile to people's face, and it just makes me feel good to make somebody else laugh. And I think the last word would be indecisive because I'm never 100% sure about anything I do, anything I decide. I'm just going to go with it because it sounds good. I make lists, all that stuff, but I still just am like, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I'm just going to do it. So
Just going to go with it. Just go for it. I feel like I've become super indecisive over the years, but I originally am a person that knows what I want, knows what I like, but over the years I've been struggling a little bit, so I definitely can relate to the indecisiveness.
Yeah, I just see so many different options, so many different opportunities.
Yeah,
and so I can never just choose one because it's like one door, but this could happen, and then in this door that could happen, and so I'm just always thinking of all the possibilities.
That's so true, though. I definitely understand that. So that's number 2. If you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would that be?
I kind of feel like I'm cheating here, but I would eat tacos for the rest of my life. Like if I could change out the filling inside the tacos.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a certain taco. It would be a veggie taco one day or chicken taco the next. So I'm not a big red meat person, so it probably won't be a ground beef taco ever, but it will always be something interesting. So
you can't lose the tacos. You honestly can't lose. There's so much you can put on them.
Yes.
So that'd be a good lifetime meal, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So next question is, what is your favorite childhood song?
Okay. I don't know if this really counts, but as a child, my father was still is, he's a huge Earth, Wind and Fire fan. So he used to sing September to me all the time. And he would remix it with my name in it. And he'd be like, Ariel. And that's all you're going to get from me because I can't sing. But he would remix the chorus with my name in it. And so that was my favorite song when I was a child. So it's technically not a child song, but that was my favorite song.
Yeah, that definitely can count as your favorite childhood song. For one, it's classic. It's Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah.
You got a special remix.
Yeah.
Your favorite childhood song. So since we're going with the theme of childhood, what was your favorite childhood fashion look?
I'm probably going to say overalls. I loved me some overalls. I could do whatever I wanted in those things. So overalls for sure. For sure.
You did you do one strap or 2? I had to ask.
I tried to be cool sometimes and I would wear the one strap, not gonna lie. But for the most part it was 2. But I just felt like I could get so many things done in those overalls. I could play with my friends and still be kind of fashionable, So
Cool.
It just depended on the day. I was trying to be cool though sometimes.
Overalls have kind of been like a consistent look though. Like they have been consistent. Like I think recently they've even have the like skinny leg overalls, and then they have like the boyfriend jean kind of style overall. So overalls have been classic.
And I kind of think they're cute on pregnant women too. When pregnant women wear overalls, it's so cute.
Yeah. So that's a good look. You see, you got staple answers. Unlike me, like with the tights and the tights shorts, the biker shorts.
Yes.
Type look. That's probably what was my look, which was great. Okay, last question is, what do you want your legacy to be?
That's probably the hardest question for me because I still think that's kind of unwritten for me right now. I'm still trying to tap into that, but I do want my legacy to show God being glorified for sure. I want people to look at me and see that God is real, that He has blessed me. And that's kind of why I have my living testimony shirt on, because of that, is that I want people that know me to know God's love. So
that's awesome. That's a great legacy, like period. Right.
Yeah.
Because, if you're known for that, I feel like you can't lose. But we'll have more on the show about these details. So now that we played the game 5 questions, I am going to officially allow you to introduce yourself. Just name, what it is you do, where you're from, and then I'll kind of share a little bit about how we kind of connect.
Yeah. So my name is Ariel Ross. I am 29 years old. I currently live here in Louisville with Kanina, but I'm born and raised from Lexington, and I went to school in Northern Kentucky where I got my undergrad in media informatics, which is a fancy name for web design because basically I can code and I can also design. But as I've grown in my career, I have found that I love design more than coding. So I really focus on that now. I don't really build websites anymore. I may one day want to get back into that, but right now I'm fully passionate about design and anything creative that comes with that. So that's a little bit about me and who I am.
That's dope. I love it. I consider myself to be a creative, and I was a broadcasting major, so broadcast communications was my major. So like the arts and media, I love it. So I definitely can connect with you on that. But so I want to quickly just share with the audience how we connected and how we came about this conversation. So I think initially we were a part of a group. It was Lean In Louisville, but it was for women of color. And we connected that way and just started having some conversations, and then we became Facebook friends.
Yeah.
And then, I just continued to follow you and to keep up with you, and kind of understood and was learning your story through your posts, right? And so just last week, you had posted something about your story, and I was like, I gotta have her on the show. I have got to have her on the show. That's my next guest. And so, I just like slid in the comments, and, hey, you want to be on my podcast? And then Tanisha, shout out to Tanisha.
Hi, Tanisha.
Yeah, loved it. So I figured that was like a thumbs up, like she was co-signing.
Yes, love me some Tanisha.
Right. She's dope too. To be a co-signer. And so I was like, yeah, so let's just do it. Let's just hear about your story. So that is how we connected. And I'm so looking forward to hearing your story. I'm a part of the mission of the More Movement Crew is to really, for us to share our stories and begin to understand that through our stories births like our purpose and kind of what God is calling us to do. And so the More Movement Crew is really about a community of people who are striving to pursue more that God has for them. And so I think your story represents that in so many ways. And I'm not going to give any of it away because I want her to tell it all. I'm not even dropping any little hints about what the story is, because I'm sure it's going to be amazing. But so that's a part of it. And specifically, just about Black women sharing their stories, right? Sharing our stories from in our words, right? And creating our own narrative, I think is important. And especially around health. Something I'm so passionate about, just the importance of living a healthy lifestyle and talking about just health in general is so important. And so that's why I wanted to have you on the show, and I'm so glad you're on the show. And we'll talk in a minute. I think I gave myself one note. Okay, so I already talked about the Facebook post. And so, you know, when I saw your Facebook post, I was like, I've got to have her on the show. And so I really want to begin, because obviously, like, you look amazing right now, right?
Thank you.
Clearly, no one knows you don't look like what you've been through.
I do not.
But
Praise God.
You've experienced like a really like scary, intense health situation. And I want you to kind of share a little bit about like what the condition was, like what.
So I found out that I have what is called a colloid cyst on my brain. And at that time, I had no idea what a colloid cyst was or where it comes from. But essentially, it's a benign tumor on my brain. It's very slow growing. They believe that I've had it. There's not a lot of research on it because basically it's a very, very rare occurrence. It's like a 1 in every 1,000 person can have this condition. So they don't know a lot about like how it develops or anything like that, but they do believe that it forms an embryo, like when you're in your mother's womb. So I've had it all this time, and it was just so slow growing that it never caused any issues throughout my life until it did. And so basically I had saw little symptoms leading up to it, but did not know that it was all connected. And what the initial thing was that I was having a hard time holding my urine. I would have to run to the bathroom. And this probably started I started noticing it maybe in February of 2019. And I know I went to the doctor and I told her, you know, like, this is happening. And she just kind of brushed it off and was like, oh, you know, as you get older, your bladder weakens. And I'm like, yeah, but not like this. Like, I should not be just like, as soon as I have to go, I gotta go. Like, there's no waiting. It's gotta go. And so what's so interesting is the Friday I went to the hospital that morning, I was like, there's no way. It had been like a month since I'd been to the doctor. She had given me like a UTI test because I advocated for that at least to check that out. It came back negative, and I was like, okay, so what's next? Like, we need to, like, what are we going to do now? And it was just kind of, you know, like, not a big deal to anyone but me, apparently. So I made an appointment, and I was like, look, you need to see me about this because this is not okay. And then I knew that I was going to my really good friend from college's wedding that morning also. So after I made that call, I had a hair appointment and I got my hair done. And then I left the hair salon and went and got my eyebrows done. And while I was waiting in line to get my eyebrows done, I started feeling woozy, kind of lightheaded. And I thought, oh, well, you know, I've been running around all day. I haven't ate anything. I'm probably just got low blood sugar and I just need to get something. And so I had called my boyfriend at the time, and he came and took me to the urgent care and just to check me out, you know, and based on me telling them that I was feeling woozy, and he noticed that my gait was off, like I wasn't walking very steady. The doctor there, I attribute her to saving my life because she could have sent me on my way with some orange juice and said, have a good day. But she was like, no, ma'am, you need to go to the ER. I need you to get some scans. that I can't do here. So we went to the ER, and I told them, what I'd been going through as far as like just feeling woozy that day. I didn't even think about my bladder being related to this. But once my boyfriend told them that I was walking a little different and they wanted to do scans, they were like, you need to call your family. My family still lives in Lexington, so my parents dropped everything and they came, and my mom was like, Ariel, you need to tell them everything. Tell them about your bladder because this could be related. She's like, have you ever seen House? You got to tell them everything. Mm-hmm. So I think all that together, like all these people in my life that cared about me so much coming together and advocating for me is how we got to this, because they did a MRI and they found the cyst on my brain. And what it was doing was blocking the spinal fluid from draining off of my head. So I had a lot of pressure. It was called, I don't remember what the condition was called, but basically I had a ton of fluid on my brain. And that's why I was feeling woozy and all of that. And so what's very powerful about that is I was getting ready to get on a plane the next day. And my mother actually asked the doctor if they had just kind of brushed me away, what would have happened had I got on that plane? And long story short, I could have died, essentially. So God was like all through this. Like I cannot say anything else, but that was God, because I could have easily just not even said I'm feeling woozy. I could have went and ate something to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
But it was just something in my head was like, no, I need to tell somebody, and I need the help. So, but before all that, like I kind of consider this colloid cyst like just the beginning, because before that, I was in a really dark place mentally, extremely, to the point where like I had even like wondered why I was still alive. Like I was like, what is my purpose in life? Like, what does God want from me? And after the surgery, it was like this sweet, calming presence just came over me, and it was like, if my only purpose in life is to let the next person know how good God is, that's enough. And so from there on, I know that's my purpose in this world, is just to be a witness to God's goodness. And that is why I tell my story and I talk about it all the time, because I want people to know like God is real. Yeah. And there's just evidence of that in everything if you just open your eyes. So
that's so much just unpacking of that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So prior to when you started having, problems when you were going to the bathroom, did you see was there any gaps or a lapse in time from the bathroom to the part where you started feeling lightheaded, or was it just like, boom, I feel lightheaded?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also like the part, and this is something I want to kind of stop and take a moment to talk about, is you said a couple of times, you said advocate. And so I think it is extremely important as Black women, and particularly about our health, is to advocate for ourselves, right? So you said like, look, something's not right. I'm not feeling right. I need to make an appointment. And you have to you have to push the issue, because sometimes they won't take it serious, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll send you home with an antibiotic. Mm-hmm. I went through, countless doctors, so I definitely understand, but advocating for ourselves is so, so, so important. When it comes to when you don't feel right? You know your body, and you don't feel, that doesn't feel right. So that's something I just wanted to kind of just plug in about that. But your story is just so powerful, because clearly, like you said, God was in it through the entire time, right? And you said that, you were in a dark place, and then after the surgery, God was with you, and you got this sense of peace. So what were your emotions at the time when you got to the doctor and they said that you had a cyst? Like, how were you feeling? Can you describe that?
I think I was just all over the place. Like I'm always like pretty much a healthy person. I've never had anything other than like a cold. I've never had the flu. I've never had pneumonia. I've never had anything. I've never had to be in a hospital for any reason. Like I've been there for other people, but I've never been there for myself. And so I was kind of annoyed a little bit, like, I don't need to stay here. I'm good. Like, I just want to find out what's wrong and go on so I can go to Dallas tomorrow. That was really my attitude. I really wasn't thinking like, girl, you ain't going to Dallas tomorrow. Like, I was still trying to get on that trip to see my friend get married.
Yeah.
And so when they diagnosed me, I think I was most scared before they did, because before I went into the MRI, they were trying to rule out they were trying to prove that I had MS, like early signs of MS. But then when the MRI came back, they saw the cyst and it was about this big on my brain. And he got rid of all of it. But the thing is it was too big for him to go in through my nose. So he had to cut my head open. And so you would never know that, because what's so cool is there's just like a little line like right over in here, where he just cut a line at the top of my head, left my hair alone. I'm only shaved in that little section. And they cut me open, and I had a I don't know what those things are, but I guess a catheter, but for my brain, inside of my head. And it was about this long inside my head for a week while I was in ICU, just to get excess fluid off of my brain. And then there was still some residual, but that was just going to take time with healing to go down. So I had regular checkups with the doctor after I was released from the hospital. Probably, I think it was like every 6 weeks, pretty much for about 3 months. And in the meantime, I also had to go to physical therapy just to make sure like my balance was still okay and like nothing was really affected, as far as my memory and my motor skills and things like that. So
can you kind of describe just the recovery process for you, and not just the physical part, but a lot of times, when we're going through something that's really traumatic, like a surgery or a procedure, there's emotional things that you go through, and then there is, obviously physical things, and sometimes spiritual things. So talk about that a little bit.
I will say that the emotional side and the mental side and spiritual side were much bigger needing healing than the physical. Because I had to have 24-hour care for 6 weeks, round the clock care by a caregiver. So my father, who is amazing, he took FMLA for me, and he was my caregiver for 6 weeks. So I lived in Lexington at my parents' house for 6 weeks. And I had certain medications that I still had to take following just to finish them out. Like I had to be on a steroid just to give my body, like before I even had the surgery, they started me on a steroid that Friday night. And leading up to my surgery, which was on a Tuesday, I had to have this steroid, I guess, to give my body strength to endure the surgery. And so I still had to keep up with that after and not just stop. So I had that. And then I also had another medication that I don't remember the name of, but it was also to ensure that I did not have any seizures, because that's another thing. Whenever someone goes inside your head, you're opening up, like, I guess, a lot. So that's part of why I had to have the 24-hour care, was to monitor and make sure I didn't have any seizures or any complications from the surgery. But once I had my initial follow-up visit, which was, I think 3 or 4 weeks later, they got me off of the prescription medication. So from there on, they removed my staples I had 20 staples in my head. They removed those, and they pretty much gave me a release to go back to work part-time. but he wanted to make sure that I was not stressed either. So that's why he wanted to make sure I was only at work part-time, because stress obviously does not help with physical healing.
Yeah.
But I think what was the hardest part was being placed on my back, basically, being told that I can't do anything really when I'm constantly on the go, and then have to really slow your life down. So I kind of joke and say, I've been used to this quarantine life because I was quarantined last summer. So I know what this is about.
Yeah.
But it slowed me down to the point where all I had was my thoughts, and all I had was God, and all I had was my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so it honestly, it makes me tear up to talk about sometimes, but it honestly made me love my parents so much more, because they dropped everything to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I just can't describe it, but I feel like God placed them in my life for a reason, and they are probably the biggest blessing God's ever given to me, were the two of them. So yeah. But that's one of the realizations I had from going through this. But I also realized that I had a lot of mental work that I needed to work on. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I have a wonderful group of friends. I have a wonderful family. I have so much to be grateful for. But I was also expecting so much from people that just didn't have it to give to me. And I also learned through that how to cope with that, and how to still be strong, and how to still be okay. That doesn't mean anything against me, and not to really, I guess it made me more emotionally intelligent, as far as understanding that everybody is dealing with their own thing.
Yeah.
And you can't really expect people to really understand what I'm going through. I had to constantly, and it's not to bash him at all. I think God had him in my life for a season, but it also made me realize that my boyfriend was not my husband.
Wow. Yeah. So spiritually, there were a lot of things that, God was revealing to you, because that's kind of was my next question. Mm-hmm. Is that, you said that, there's a lot of things that you had to overcome spiritually. And so what were some ways that you were able to overcome, and God, how was God speaking to you? Like, kind of take us through that.
I think he was speaking to me a lot through people, and like showing me who people were during that time. And it wasn't in one of those where he was showing me the bad people. Like, everyone's like, God shows you your enemies. Like, it was never that. It was none of that. It was actually showing me, because I had been praying to him time and time again about, I don't really have a group of friends. I don't really feel like I have a group of friends. Like, I felt so alone all the time. And through this, he showed me all the people that care for me. Like, it was just like an outpouring of people just calling me, checking on me, loving on me. Like, I got a text today from someone just saying they're so happy that I'm still here. Like, those kinds of things mean so much to someone who didn't feel like they had anyone, and I think he was showing me, girl, you have a lot, and you're just not seeing it. You need to open your eyes. It's almost like he took this blinder off of me and showed me how blessed I truly am. So I'm always in a constant state of gratefulness because of that. I think God has really shown me how to be grateful through all of this. And one thing that was super powerful to me was my dad he's dealt with his own health issues, and him like sitting with me and actually telling me he understands what I'm going through and what I'm feeling, and knowing that, like, okay, like, I remember one day when it was like summertime, and I couldn't go out and like go to this concert because it was too hot for me, and I didn't need to be out there. And I just remember like being like, I just moved into this new apartment, and it's much bigger than the little apartment I had before. I used to call it my little box, but it felt really lonely in here because I had moved farther away from where all my friends lived. And it was just one of those where, like, I told my dad, I was like, I just feel so lonely. Like, and I couldn't describe it. Like, I just felt lonely. And he just was like, Ariel, you're never alone. You're never alone. And that's what I mean by, like, God has always kind of spoke to me through people. And I just think that's amazing, because I pray a lot. And sometimes, you feel like he doesn't hear me. He's not listening to this. But then he answers those prayers through other people. And I just, whew,
yeah,
that's a whole nother thing for a whole nother day. But it's amazing to me. So
I love all of it, honestly, because like, look, you're literally getting ready to make me tear up because, when you go through these type of experiences, you feel alone, right? And I definitely could connect with you with the battle where you're like, okay, even though I have all of these things, even prior to being sick, I have all these things, but I still feel like something is missing. I'm still feeling like, I'm still struggling. I'm still going through depression, and you don't understand that. And then you have this traumatic experience with your health, and then you recognize and realize that you're grateful for what you have, that you have incredible parents, that God is real, right? And you start to, like you said, see the world a completely different way. And not many people can understand that. And like the fact that you said that, I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, I just want to scream because like, I totally get it. Like, I get it. Like, you can't go nowhere. Like, I felt like I was in prison. I was scared. I remember being in ICU, and then there was a window, and then, no, actually I got out of ICU. I was in my regular room. But I remember staring out the window and looking at people going to Costco. And I was like,
I want to go to Costco.
Costco. Like, it's just such a lonely place. But I think that God uses things like that to really shape us into the people that we're supposed to be. And he really helps us to change. He changes like the course of our lives through that. And so we can share our stories, right? We get a deeper revelation of who he is, which is so amazing. And then for me, and this is the part that really called me to create this, is that he starts to reveal to you the things that he's called you to do. And right. And so like, you're a creative, like you love graphic design. And so I know that God is going to be doing something through this. I mean, you might write a book.
Well, part of me now looks at nature and the world and all of these things, and I believe God is a designer. I'm like, he was the first designer. Everything that he has made, color, like all of that is why I love it. It's just, I can't put it into words, but it's just like, I think he puts a little bit of himself in all of us.
That's powerful. That's so
and
true.
So that the creativity that God, the creatives that God is something he gave to me. And I'm grateful.
Yeah,
for sure.
So for those of you who weren't on the call before we started this conversation, is that we both discussed us having a passion for all of these new things. And so we're talking about, we're both gardening and, discovering all of these things. And so we were also talking about health. And so I feel like, and I can't even say I feel like, I know that through, personally through my experience, and I know also through yours, is that God gives us this newfound appreciation for life, and to recognize that there are so many natural alternatives that he has created to help us to heal, right? And discovering new ways and healthier ways to deal with things, to process things, foods to eat for me in this vegan journey. And so I know that, it's not just that God opens up doors for us to be able to connect in so many different ways now through this story. And so he takes like our pain and he turns it into purpose.
He does.
And it is so powerful how he does that. And I truly believe that, you know, that God is going to take you, you know, on a whole different journey. It's going to be more than you ever imagined that it would be. I truly do, just by sharing your story. But I think we also don't understand the power in our stories. That's why I wanted you to share it, because I was seeing it like on Facebook, and like you showed the picture even with your scar when you first had to shave that part. And I was just like, wow, like this is serious. Like this is something major that you've been able to overcome. And we don't look at not just the fact that you're healed, but we don't look at all of the miracles that took place even with that. Like you didn't have any complications, right? You are completely healed. You didn't have no memory loss. You didn't lose.
Well, I still have a little short-term memory loss.
You're going to use that one. You're going to use that one too.
You know I had brain surgery. I can't remember all that.
Right. You're going to use that one. That was a good one. But just, you know, like just being grateful that like God was there and having amazing parents. Like I can certainly connect with that, because my mom dropped everything too. She was like, we sleeping in this hospital. Like this is where we're living for a whole month.
Yeah.
Like drop everything, and everybody doesn't have that benefit.
Yes.
Right? Two living in the house with two parents that are willing to do whatever it takes for their child to be healthy is such a blessing. Like when you were wanting to cry, like you was literally about to make me cry, and I was like, hold it together.
Yeah, like me too. It's like, girl, don't you cry on video.
Hold it together. But it is. It's
do that Kerry Washington cry.
Oh man, sometimes you can't help it.
No, you can't.
Oh, makeup. Right. But it's that real though. And when you really look back and you think about it, just so grateful. And share, I'm not gonna say it, but share what today, is it today? That celebrates?
Today is the 1-year anniversary of my surgery. It was on May 28th of 2019. So that's another reason why I was like, yes, I should go ahead and do this and tell my story 1 year later. So here I am.
That is beautiful. Like, and that is God, because I didn't just happen to get on Facebook, because I scroll, but I really don't really be scrolling like that. So I just scrolled and I was like, oh, and I, you know, slid a comment in there. And so that was God, how he connects people together. And I look forward to continuing, you know, this conversation, continuing to connect with you on this, because I think that this is an area that we don't really, that specifically women and women of color don't really get to talk about health and things that they're experiencing, you know, physical things and ways to advocate for yourself and all of these things. Like we don't talk about these things, and like we've overcome, and we look great. Like
we don't look like we've been through.
We don't look like what we've been through. And had you have seen us, had you have seen you last year, had you seen me in 2013, 2014, like I was going through it. But you know, we can share the stories that like we came out of that. Like we survived it. And so God is so good.
He is so good.
So good. And I'm just so appreciative of you sharing your story, for you taking this step and sharing your story. And I know that it's going to bless whoever watches this. And
I hope so. I really do.
So is there anything else that you want to share with the audience? Or is there any...
I want to rewind back, because it sounded really harsh when I said I found out my boyfriend was not my husband. But he was not. I believe he was not meant to be my husband at that time. I still think he is a great person. I still consider him one of my best friends. I actually wrote him a letter last Friday, because he is the one who took me to the doctor. And I said, on this day, you took me and you saved my life, and I want to thank you. And I wrote it because I feel like when you handwrite a note, that speaks more volumes than a text. So I handwrote it and sent it to him, and he even told me that it made his day. So I don't want it to seem like I'm like, forget that man, because he is a wonderful man.
But it's so true, though, when you said that, people are placed in your life at a specific time for a specific reason. That is so true, right? Like everybody is not necessarily meant to be, connected to you forever in that way, but they are there for a reason, and God puts people there for a reason. So there was purpose.
And I do thank God for him. I do thank God for him every day.
Yeah.
So
that's beautiful. Well, thank you. I'm glad you got a chance to clarify that.
Because I was like, that sounded real mean.
Real messed up. You said like God was like, he is not the one. You need to go. So, but it's been so much fun.
Yes, I enjoyed this
so much for just being, for being brave and taking that step and sharing your story. Because sometimes it's not always easy to share our stories, and to just share our truth, right? And where we were and just all these things. But I think that transparency is so powerful.
Yes,
and so thank you so much. I just pray that nothing but blessings for you and what's to come. I know that I'll hear about you doing something next.
It'll probably be my garden. I'm pretty proud of it.
You gotta post pictures to keep us updated on this garden. Yeah. We're gonna get this garden together, y'all. We're gonna be professionals, like professionals out here, right? We're gonna make a whole salad. She growing a whole
we're gonna be at the farmer's market next year.
Right. All kind of stuff, products, all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody watching. I pray and I hope that this episode has blessed you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode. And until next time, be blessed. Bye.